Hello. Today, we look at the similarities in narcissism, spirituality, and the human condition. Our guest is Elias Stasinos. Elias, thank you for being with us. Let's start with a big question. You have suggested that narcissistic behavior is essentially secular demonic behavior. Can you elaborate on this?
When we look at narcissistic traits, the pursuit of admiration, social status, and personal gain at the expense of others, we are essentially looking at an extreme version of worldly people. It is what many spiritual traditions warn us is demonic. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, warns against being driven solely by desires and ego. Jesus spoke about not storing up treasures on earth. These teachings appeal to the same human tendencies that in their extreme form we now recognize as narcissistic.
So you're saying that what we call narcissism is actually just an amplified version of worldly tendencies?
Yes, but something like Cain and Abel. Cain murdered his brother for absolutely no reason. If you mean that secular tendencies include murderers, then you are right. We all have these inclinations to some degree. A narcissist is someone who has fully embraced them, often as a defense mechanism against their deep insecurities. The narcissist is in a demonic degree, and the malicious narcissist is in a satanic degree.
You mentioned the 7 deadly sins in connection with this. How are they related?
The 7 deadly sins, pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, anger, and sloth, are essentially a list of self-centered worldly behaviors. If you look at the narcissistic traits, they line up extremely well with these deadly sins because they deaden the conscience of man. That is, they make the narcissist to be an unconscious person without a heart, without compassion for his fellow man. Hence the fact that he tortures his victims without remorse. Pride and arrogance is the essence of the narcissist. Greed manifests itself in a sense of entitlement, that is, without value, and having offered nothing to anyone, he acts as if everyone owes him something. He believes that he deserves the best of everything and in everything. Envying the special gifts of others threatens the narcissist's sense of superiority, but also envying gifts or abilities in others that cannot be easily acquired, such as intelligence. This causes the narcissist to downplay and devalue the gifts they envy in others. Rage occurs as narcissistic rage when the narcissist's ego and imagined superiority are threatened. They are all interconnected.
Now, you have also associated these behaviors with some specific spiritual teachings. Can you talk about that?
In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a passage that describes those of demonic nature who say, "I am perfect, I am powerful, I am happy, I am rich, and have relatives of high social status. Who else is equal to me?" This is what the narcissist thinks, and it strangely mirrors a narcissist's grandiose self-image. He thinks no one is better than him. This is a thought of the satanic degree, and is the stage before the destruction of the narcissist. This idea that someone thinks he is better than everyone is found in the Old Testament, where Isaiah says that Satan thought in his heart that he is better than God, and that he will build his throne higher than the throne of God. And there he was, which immediately fell like lightning to the earth from heaven. Jesus said, "Let the dead bury their dead," which can be interpreted to refer to those who are spiritually dead, so focused on worldly concerns that they neglect their spiritual lives. This aligns with the 7 deadly sins that appear as behaviors of the narcissist that deaden their conscience, e.g., the sadistic nature of the narcissist and the narcissist's focus on external validation and material success.
It seems that these spiritual teachings were identifying narcissistic tendencies long before modern psychology gave them a name.
Absolutely. These ancient wisdom traditions recognized man's tendency towards self-centeredness and its harmful effects on both the individual and society. Narcissists are like religious fanatics who are deeply attached to their beliefs to the point that they reject any evidence that contradicts their faith. Narcissists are similar, but their religion is themselves. The narcissist thinks he is God. That's why he reacts so fanatically when someone challenges him by saying something derogatory about the narcissist. That's where his narcissistic rage comes from. His religion is insulted, which is the belief that the narcissist is God. They are fanatically devoted to maintaining their grandiose self-image. This makes them resistant to change and often incapable of genuine self-reflection. That's why they can't change.
You talked about how we live in a world that often rewards narcissistic behavior. Can you expand on that?
Our culture often exalts pleasure, wealth, fame, and status, the very things narcissists crave. Social media allows for constant self-promotion and admiration-seeking. Many of our economic and social systems reward self-interest over community well-being. In this environment, narcissistic traits can be considered adaptive, even necessary for success. This creates a challenging environment for those who strive to live by virtues and spiritual principles.
So how do we live in this world without falling into these traps and narcissistic patterns?
I believe it starts with awareness. We must recognize these tendencies in ourselves and understand their roots. The Bhagavad Gita talks about the importance of self-knowledge. Jesus emphasized knowing the truth, saying, "The truth shall set you free." This truth is not about creeds, religions, or belief systems. It is about authentic self-awareness and understanding of our place in the world. It is about recognizing the fleeting nature of worldly pleasures and the deeper self-awareness that comes from connecting with others, compassion and spiritual growth.
It's kind of challenging, especially in our crazy, consumerist world.
It is absolutely challenging, but I think it's also necessary. The narcissist, in a sense, is trapped in a prison of his own making, constantly restless, never truly satisfied, unable to form genuine bonds. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, demonic people never find peace until the moment they die. The spiritual teachings we have discussed offer a way out of this prison, not just for extreme narcissists, but for all of us who struggle with these tendencies to some degree.
We've covered a lot about narcissism in general, but can we go deeper into extreme cases? What makes a malicious narcissist so resistant to change?
Monica, when we talk about extreme or malicious narcissist, we are dealing with a level of delusion that is deeply embedded in their nervous system. These individuals are somewhat trapped in a prison of their own making, a mental construct where they see themselves as gods, infallible and superior to everyone else. This is the satanic degree of narcissist.
It seems incredibly difficult to deal with. How does their belief that they are superior to others manifest in their interactions with others?
It is extremely challenging. The malicious narcissist operates from a completely different frame of reference than most people. Not interested in genuine dialogue or understanding, their goal is dominance and control. The strange thing is that they may engage in conversation, but it is not to exchange ideas. It's to prove their superiority, put others down, and boost their grandiose fantasy about themselves.
So are logical arguments or attempts at reasoning futile?
Logical arguments do not work because the narcissist does not operate from a point of logic. The narcissist's responses focus on his emotional needs, which have nothing to do with the conversation. For example, the narcissist has a need to feel superior, to be right, to dominate. So you try to talk rationally, and he responds emotionally where you can't find a solution anywhere. The conversation becomes a vicious circle. It ends where it started, and no problem is solved because you cannot explain your point of view logically to this schizophrenic person. This is also why the conversation with the narcissist always ends with an argument or with a feeling of stress. Narcissists may use seemingly logical arguments, but these are simply tools of manipulation. They will shift responsibility, take past events out of context, use other people's opinions against you. They will do and say anything to maintain their position of supposed superiority.
It seems exhausting to those who interact with them.
It is absolutely very exhausting and hurtful for the narcissist's victim. It is important for victims to understand this dynamic in order to protect themselves from these monsters. The narcissist's pattern is one of deception. They may mock, flatter, or seem genuinely involved and interested, but these are all pretense to serve their need for superiority and control. They do not see others as people with feelings and rights, but as objects to be manipulated for their own gain.
You have stated that there is no hope for change in these extreme cases. Can you elaborate on this?
That there is no hope for change is a hard truth to accept, but it is true. Especially in cases of malignant narcissism, the narcissist's entire psyche is built around this illusion of grandiose self. Change would mean dealing with the emptiness and insecurity that exists behind the grandiose facade, and that's just too threatening for the narcissist. He doesn't want to see his real self, so he can't change. Practically, don't expect change. Just leave the narcissist running.
You often compare the narcissist to the biblical concept of Satan, the idea of an entity so convinced of its own superiority that repentance or change becomes impossible. What advice would you give to people dealing with such people?
Yes, as I said above, the narcissist believes he is God or higher than God. He won't change and he won't agree with anything you tell him. The most important thing is to protect yourself. Recognize that you cannot change them, and that messing with their manipulative conversations will leave you confused, betrayed, and diminished. Set firm boundaries and, if possible, limit or eliminate contact. Know that their behavior isn't about you, it's about their own deep issues and insecurities. Also, Be aware of the larger system around a narcissus. They often have enablers or flying monkeys who support their warped worldview. It is people in your circle or other acquaintances who are controlled by the narcissist who changes their opinion of you. Don't get caught up in these broader dynamics. The important thing is to find a way to break the relationship, even if you lose other familiar faces from your circle.
If true, it paints a pretty grim picture of human nature.
I would say this. Recognize that the impulses we label narcissistic are shared human and demonic tendencies reinforced by the current culture of individuality. Recognize these tendencies in others to protect yourself, but recognize these tendencies in yourself if you have them. Try to find genuine self-awareness and awareness. No external success or adulation can fill an inner void. True fulfillment comes from within, from living with authenticity, compassion, and a sense of connection to something greater than our ego. Created by Elias Stasinos. Hit the like button and subscribe if you found this helpful.